Hey everyone, today we'll be finding trigonometric function values using a calculator. Our main objectives will be finding function values using the calculator and finding angle measures using the calculators. So before we begin, there is a point of caution, which I'm sure you heard before, but when evaluating trigonometric functions of angles given in degrees, remember that the calculator must be set in degree mode. Similarly, when evaluating trigonometric functions given in radians, remember that the calculator itself must be set in radian mode. So here's our first example. Let's approximate the value of the expression sine of 49 degrees in 12 minutes. Now, many of your graphing calculators and scientific calculators will have a minute-second button, but just for fun, let's do this. Let's rewrite 49 degrees and 12 minutes completely in degrees. Remember that there are 60 minutes in a degree, so this is really 49 degrees and 12 sixtieths of a degree, which we could simplify to be 49.2 degrees. Thus, sine of 49 degrees in 12 minutes, we can just plug into our calculators, type in sine, parenthesis, 49.2, no need to put the degree symbol if you're already in degree mode, and hit the equals button, and your calculator should give you an approximate value of about 0.757. Again, this is merely an approximate value because 49 degrees in 12 minutes is not a special angle. If you compare that to what we've done before, or what you've done before, where maybe you were asked to find the sine of 30 degrees, you could easily say that the sine of 30 degrees is 1/2, because that's a special angle which appears on your unit circle. Okay, how could this process vary? Well, one variation is that they ask you not about sine, cosine, or tangent, but about one of its reciprocal functions, such as secant. Most of your calculators do not have a secant, cosecant, or cotangent button. So secant of 97.977 degrees, you first have to use the reciprocal identity that secant of theta is 1 over cosine of theta. If you do that, then you can easily compute that secant of 97.977 degrees is the same as 1 over cosine of 97.977 degrees. And if you plug that into your calculator as 1 divided by cosine of 97.977 degrees, remembering that there's no need to put the degree symbol, you should get negative 7.206. And the last example of this type is where you're asked to approximate the value of an expression, such as 1 over cotangent of 51.4283 degrees. So notice that the expression itself isn't just a trig function. So again, you want to use an identity to try and rewrite this in terms of sine, cosine, or tangent. And we can use the fact, again, the reciprocal identity that tangent is the same as 1 over cotangent of an angle. Thus, 1 over cotangent of 51.4283 degrees is the same as tangent of 51.4283 degrees. And using your calculator, you should get that that is approximately 1.254. At this stage, you should pause the video and make sure that you know how to enter each of these onto your calculator in order to produce the right values or the correct approximate values. So the last thing to do here is finding angle measure using a calculator. Now, again, if you're given an expression like sine of theta is equal to root 3 over 2, and you're given the restriction that theta is in the interval from 0 to 90, well then in that stage, that appears on your unit circle, and it's a special angle on your unit circle. And either through memorization or through using a special right triangle, you should know that theta would be 60 degrees. There's no need for a calculator to figure that out. However, suppose you have a situation where you need to find the measure of an angle having a certain trigonometric function value, and you need the calculator, which have three inverse functions. Sine inverse, which is sine to the -1, cosine inverse, which is cosine of the -1, and tangent inverse, which is tangent to the -1. So for example, if you were asked to use a calculator to find the angle theta in the interval from 0 to 90 degrees that satisfies the condition sine of theta is 0.9677, then the sine inverse function will give you the angle whose sine is 0.9677. Plug that into your calculator and you should get something approximately like 75.4 degrees. Depends on how many decimal places you'd like to keep. Or maybe you're asked about a secant and you want to know when does secant equal 1.0546 in the interval from 0 to 90 degrees. Again, the issue is this, that the calculator does not have a secant button, a secant inverse button. So you need to rewrite secant as 1 over cosine and then you need to write this expression as cosine of theta is equal to 1 over 1.0546. So that now you can ask your calculator, okay, give me theta, which should be the cosine inverse of this quantity right there, 1 over 1.0546. If you do that, your calculator should give you the approximate value of about 18.5 degrees. This is a very common situation and one that quite often students have issues with. So remember, the first thing is to rewrite your given equation in terms of one of the main three trig functions, sine, cosine, or tangent, and rewrite that expression so that cosine of theta is isolated. And that concludes our video about finding trigonometric function values using a calculator. I hope you have a wonderful rest